5:30. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the City of Colborne, number 15-16. I'd like to call upon Joel Blanco to sing "O Canada."
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras est porté le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you very much, Joel. Serving us once again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
I'd entertain the motion to confirm our agenda. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Main. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? There being none, it shall be noted. Call for a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole 14-16 held on July 25th, 2016. Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Main. All those in favor? Carried. Move on to determination of items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to lift number 4 and number 10.
Number 4 and number 10. Are there any others? Councillor Kenny.
Item 11, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Item 11. Thank you. Councillor Main. 13. 13. Councillor Dash. 12. 12. Councillor Weiner. Anything? Okay, that's it. And I'll call for a motion for those items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Main, moved by, second by Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Carried. We have several presentations this evening. The first is the Fire Marshal's Public Safety Council Safety Award presentation to Lakeshore High School. I'd ask Scott Lawson, our Fire Prevention Officer, and Fire Chief, Deputy Fire Chief Mike Bendia to come forward.
Good evening, everybody.
Scott, there's a little button there. If you could push it, Mike will show you. There, great.
How's that?
Perfect.
It's still good evening. Today is actually a good day. Many of you may remember last fall I actually stood in here and talked about a smoke alarm problem that we had in our city. The fire department came up with different strategies between boots on the ground, an in-service inspection program, and the part that was the most exciting is we jumped into the world of social media. I am not a young man. There is gray hair up here. I am not a social media guy. So who do we go to? We went to one of the best places we could think of was Lakeshore Catholic High School. I walked into the vice principal's office that afternoon, and I talked to an Andrew Boone. Without even getting into the details of what I wanted to do, it was, we're on board. And he came up with a very special name of Michaela Bodis. Now this girl helped us through many of our little projects that we put up, and hopefully Don can show us one or two of those? Yeah, go for it. Do not try this at home.
My name is Michaela Godis, a student at Lakeshore Catholic High School. I'm here with Scott Lawson today, Fire Prevention Officer of Fort Colborne. Mr. Lawson, what do you have to say about fire prevention?
Well, thanks for having me here today, Michaela. Tell me, what comes to mind when you think about fire prevention? Actually, Michaela, I was hoping we could talk about smoke alarms. Just one sec, Don. Just so everybody knows the impact that that video had. We had over 6,000 views, and we actually went into the States. I think we were just under 400 views in the States. That was our most popular video, showing you the power of social media. Don, you want to show the other one, please?
My name is Michaela Godis, a student at Lakeshore Catholic High School. Fort Colborne Fire Department has been speaking to us about the importance of working with smoke alarms. Well, let's see how ready they are. There's nobody here. Whoa, that's pretty good. Are you that ready?
Again, that video went right across North America. Very, very well done. And that was the infancy of our attempt at social media. Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Service has over 300 followers now. At that time, only 100. So if we ever were to do something like that, perfect. Now, the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council has a Fire Safety Award. This prestigious award is handed out to different individuals and/or groups that have made a significant influence in the fire safety of their municipality. This year, Port Colborne Lakeshore Catholic High School was one of 16 individuals and/or groups that won this prestigious award. Chief Cartwright and myself had the honor of going to, I don't want to screw this up because it was a great day, the famous People's Players Theater on June 15th with Lakeshore Catholic to get this award. Now, the chief was very grateful for what Lakeshore Catholic had done. We got an award for Lakeshore, but because Michaela put her heart and soul and helped the municipality out and the fire department, I'd like to bring up Michaela and Principal Glenn Gifford. To accept this award. Michaela, on behalf of Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services, thank you very much. Good job. Well done. Yes. Chief? You're good?
Let's put the award up a little bit higher and make sure everyone gets a hand on it. That's great, thank you. That's good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
Michaela. Good luck at Queens next fall. Thank you, Principal Gifford. Okay, at this time, I'd like to call up Councillor B. Kenny to present the grant recipients of the Friends of Port Colborne. She'll tell you how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome everyone. Tonight we're going to present several community grants to non-profit organizations who serve the residents of Port Colborne. You may recall that this used to be done by the Port Colborne Hydro Board, but then, as you know, we sold hydro, and with those monies we combined with the stuff we got from the province and the feds, we built the beautiful Vale Center. Then we had a fiber company, a sub-company of Port Colborne Hydro, and that subsequent sale then of our fiber, that money's still in the bank. We haven't spent that money, but we did put aside from that money our original investment of $700,000 was our original investment, and I believe we got just over 6.9 million when we sold fiber, but we kept that original money in to continue to give grants back to the community. There are 3 members of council on this fiber committee and 2 members of the public. There's myself, Councillor Angie Demaray, Mayor John Maloney, and then from the public, Gary Bruno and Brenda Hames. We council set aside $40,000 to be distributed each year. And their first round of applications were received in January, and those grants totaled an amount of $12,600. We have now received the second round of applications, and we'll be presenting 3 grants tonight, the total amount being $14,300. So the first grant, I'd like to call up Mr. Ernio Rossi to receive this. This is the Friends of Port Colborne Lighthouses, and they will use their $2,500 grant to help offset the liability insurance for their tours of the lighthouses during our canal days. And if you've never had a chance to do that, you should do that. Mr. Rossi, if you would come forward, please. Thank you. Okay. Went to high school with Peter many years ago. Hi, Peter. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Mayor, members of council, and the grant committee members, on behalf of the Friends of the Port Colborne Lighthouses, Save Our Lighthouses, I'd like to thank you for reviewing our grant application and accepting it. The funds will be used to offset a major portion of our liability insurance. This is the 4th year that we've had the tours of the lighthouse, and we've had another successful year with hundreds of people coming out to tour the lighthouses. One man was actually doing video conferencing with his 90-year-old mother, and he said he's been there each year for the last 4 years, and he's going to come again next year. He liked the venue so much. It's nice to see a lot of young people come off the boat. Some of them never even been on a boat, going through the canal, seeing the ships, and the ride out there alone is what a lot of people value. The way we get out there is Scott Wolf has a pontoon boat, which he donates, and this year we also had the Pokemar take people out there, and the little kids like going out on the rescue boat. You know, it's a little added excitement. People are amazed at the view of Port Colborne from the lighthouses. You see the Empire Sandy going by, you see the Lakers, you can almost touch them. It's a real asset to the community. We currently have a 5-year, 10-day allowance to go out to the lighthouses from the Department of Ocean and Fisheries. The Seaway, unfortunately, did not allow us to use the breakwall again this year. We did the first couple of years, and it's a beautiful walk out there. It's almost a kilometer. I mean, the breakwall is in great shape. It's 10 feet plus. That's about the narrowest it is. It's flat. The first couple of years, we had ladies with baby buggies going down there. But unfortunately, we weren't allowed to do that this year. And so we were only allowed to use the one lighthouse, so we didn't get out to the foghorn. We even trained 8 people in first aid and got liability insurance in anticipation of being allowed to go out there. We hope we can resolve this issue next year. The history of Port Colborne, obviously Port Colborne, it's a gateway of navigation. The lighthouses, one of which is over 100 years old and probably one of the first ones that was built of concrete, are significant features of Port Colborne, and I think are a great integral part of Port Colborne. We hope to gain heritage status and more control over the lighthouses so that we can do some sprucing up and generate other, maybe use it for other venues other than just the canal days. So again, I thank you very much for the grant, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
The next grant goes to Friends of Roselawn, and they will use their $7,300 to purchase 3 benches to be installed on the grounds of Roselawn in the garden area, and also provide some startup funds for a family-oriented park cleanup event in the fall named Mosby Day, in honor of Harold Mosby. He was a mysterious gardener who designed and developed the Roselawn Gardens back in the 1930s. Pat Bowman is standing right beside me, and I just want to tell you what a great group of individuals they are and how many improvements they have already made to the Roselawn Center. And so it's with great pleasure that I hand this over and continue your great work, Pat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dee. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, City Council, members of the council, the staff, and the members of the committee, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Friends of Roselawn Board and the members for this generous grant. Every year we apply, and every year we keep our fingers crossed, and it's nice to know that you have the confidence in our group to let us continue with some of our endeavors. And the city of Port Colborne is definitely interested in history and heritage, just like with the Lighthouse Group. It's nice to know that we've got your back. So I'd like to say that this money will be used to purchase 3 heritage benches, and also starting up a new little family-based get-together in October to have people come in from different parts of the city and help clean up the Roselawn, plant daffodils, and just learn about the history of the gardens. And we hope to make that an annual event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
So if you're interested in doing a little bit of gardening and helping out, you can contact them right there. And it's great because they're going to have children involved, and it's so good to get the children at that age involved in maintaining heritage. And I think it was a great idea. The next grant goes to Community Living, Port Colborne Wainfleet, and they will use their $4,500 to bring their Kids Zone program to the residents of Port Colborne in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Niagara. Is Mark Gillaboo here this evening? Oh, thanks. Come on up. And this is a great program as well. It really helps some children who might not get an opportunity to participate in an event, and so we're very, very happy to award you this check, and thank you once again for continuing with your great work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and also the committee, thank you so much for this money. Without the money coming to us, the children wouldn't be able to attend the Boys and Girls Club. They're requiring some extra support as well as transportation. So it's wonderful, and it's all through the school year, so we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so those out listening, if you have a group that's a nonprofit organization and you want to apply for a grant, our next rounds will be coming up very shortly. It'll be advertised. You'll see it. And as Pat says, like Pat Bowman said, that it's one time a year. You can apply, and the committee goes over that very, very carefully, and hopefully we can continue giving money out to community groups, because I love giving away money. So anyways, it's fun. So thanks very much. Thank
you, Councillor Kenny. There are 3 delegations this evening. as of noon today, there are 10 minutes for the presentations. I'd like to call on Lynn Cunningham to come forward to the first delegation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council staff, gallery. My name is Lynn Cunningham, and I am the Account Manager of Stakeholder Relations for MPAC. Also with me tonight is the Manager of Valuation, Michael Moore, and I'm here to deliver the 2016 assessment update from MPAC. Okay. Property assessment and taxes are a product of an integrated system involving the provincial government, including the Assessment Review Board, MPAC, and the municipalities and Ontario taxpayers. While each has a distinct role and interest in the assessment and taxation process, success of the system depends on all parties defining their responsibilities and working together effectively. The provincial government, so the Ministries of Finance and Municipal Affairs and Housing, are the primary ministries responsible for setting assessment taxation legislation, policies, and determining education rates. The province also operates an independent assessment tribunal, the Assessment Review Board. MPAC is responsible for determining the current value assessments of more than 5 million properties with an estimated total value of $2.3 trillion. Each year, municipalities are required to make a host of decisions that shape the local property tax regime by affecting how the property tax burden is distributed across the assessment base. With increasingly complex assessment and taxation process, more municipalities are becoming involved in assessment matters in an effort to effectively fulfill their taxation responsibilities. Every 4 years, MPAC updates property assessments to reflect a legislated valuation date. For this year's assessment update, the legislative valuation date is January 1st, 2016. So every property owner in Ontario will receive a property assessment notice showing their estimated value of their property as of January 1st, 2016. The new assessed values will be used by municipalities for property taxation over the next 4 years, so 2017 through 2020. MPAC has been preparing for the 2016 assessment update since early 2014, 2 years earlier than previous assessment updates. We've been working internally with our stakeholders to effect some real change, and some of these changes include a staggered mailing property assessment notice over a 21-week window beginning back in April, new advanced disclosure and consultation processes that will achieve even greater transparency and shared understanding about property assessments with taxpayers as well as municipalities, a redesigned property assessment notice that incorporates plain language and design principles, a new Municipal Connect application that provides municipalities with early access to the preliminary 2016 assessed values. We also redesigned the About My Property application that provides taxpayers with easy access to market trends and detailed property assessment information. MPAC has completed a greater number of sales investigations and quality checks than past assessment updates. Not only has MPAC completed more sales investigations and data quality checks in preparation for this assessment update than past assessments, we also visited and reviewed properties for the reasons on the slide. Across the province, we've reviewed more than 2.8 million data elements, and in Port Colborne, we've updated 4,010. Why is this important? Accurate data results in accurate current assessments. One of our 4 key initiatives is actively engaging municipalities and property owners in the 2016 advanced disclosure and consultation process. Disclosure is about transparency and shared understanding. It's our commitment to share information early, providing an opportunity for engagement ahead of the roll return. It's a no surprises approach. So in early 2015, we posted level 1 methodology guides on our website, mpac.ca, for 11 special purpose property types such as food processing and auto assembly plants. Additional guides will be available for 22 additional business properties such as retail properties, golf courses, and farms. The level 2 market valuation reports will explain how valuation methodology has been applied to a property type. The reports provide relevant market data information about key components at the property type level. And level 3 will be detailed valuation information and property level details at the property level on About My Property as well as directly from MPAC. So there are many benefits to advanced disclosure. Municipalities are encouraged to actively participate in the advanced disclosure consultation. The success of advanced disclosure is dependent on the feedback that we receive not only from property owners, but also from municipalities. While disclosure won't prevent the filing of appeals, it will level the playing field and ensure there are no surprises over the next 4 years. Okay? This year, residential property owners in Port Colborne and all of Niagara have been or will be receiving their property assessment notices starting August 2nd. Notices for farm will be sent October 11th, and for business properties, they'll be mailed out October 18th. The current value assessment shown on the notice will serve as the basis for municipal property taxes over the next 4 years, 2017 through 2020. Okay, again. MPAC's key touch point with property taxpayers is the property assessment notice. As part of our commitment to enhance the residential taxpayers' experience, we've redesigned the notice to incorporate simple explanations and an explanation of the phase-in. Enhancements and changes to the notice were based on feedback we received through qualitative and quantitative research with residential taxpayers across Ontario, as well as consultation with the Minister of Finance. What's new? The date is clearly identified on the top of the notice. Next. We've incorporated plain language and design principles. The 2016 assessed value and change in assessed value from the 2012 update are highlighted. Next. The first page of the notice includes MPAC's contact information, including the About My Property website, and a clear explanation of the phased-in assessed value and the request for reconsideration deadline for each taxation year are highlighted. A simple explanation of the Ontario Property Assessment System information and the valuation process and the 5 key factors that affect value are displayed at the top of the second page. Next. And information about market trends and percent change in each municipality can be found in the market trends area on aboutmyproperty.ca. The notice provides a secure login for property owners so they can view detailed information about their property and other properties in their neighborhood. The roles and responsibilities are all of the MPAC, the provincial government, municipalities are also highlighted on page 2. Next. What did change? In December 2015, the province passed Bill 144 Budget Measures Act in 2015, which introduced a new request for reconsideration deadline. The legislative change moves the request for reconsideration deadline to 120 days from the issue date shown on the property assessment notice. So for residential taxpayers in Port Colborne, the reconsideration deadline will be November 30th, 2016. The early notice delivery and reconsideration deadline will enable MPAC to complete requests for reconsideration reviews before the rolls are returned, providing greater stability and accuracy to the assessment base. Next, how can I learn more about my assessment? About My Property is the online tool that connects property owners and MPAC. We've simplified the application based on the feedback, and our goal is to improve communication and transparency by enabling owners to learn how their property is assessed and compare their values with others in their neighborhood. Using About My Property, owners can learn about the market trends in their neighborhood, including residential sale price trends in their neighborhood and across other municipalities in Ontario, read, save, and print copies of their notice, review detailed information on their property, validate property details, and file a request for reconsideration if they disagree. Basic information for up to 100 properties and detailed information on 24. Next. There are 5 steps to follow for resolving assessment concerns. Step 1 is to always ask yourself, could I have sold my property for the assessed value on January 1st, 2016? If yes, then no further action is required. If no, then we're committed to working with you to get it right. Step 2 is to visit the aboutmyproperty.ca to review the information MPAC has on file with your information. Step 3, if you still have questions, is to contact MPAC by phone, fax, mail, or email. Step 4, residential property owners that disagree with their assessment can file a request for reconsideration using aboutmyproperty.ca or by mail or by fax. This is a free review. And the final step is if an individual is still not satisfied with the outcome of the request for reconsideration review, they have the option to still file an appeal with the Assessment Review Board. The board charges $75 fee for a residential property. Next. We're here to help. Contact MPAC with any questions you have regarding your property assessment. On the notice, or the information is detailed on your notice. Next. As part of our advanced disclosure as well, we've redesigned the Municipal Connect application to offer municipalities a modern and flexible access to the 2016 assessed values. The values for residential have been available since April, and the preliminary values for the other property types will be made available as soon as they're finalized. Next. We've provided new pamphlets to the municipalities and to MPPs for the public for better understanding. Next, the Municipal Toolkit. MPAC has proactively provided our stakeholders a toolkit with key information and resource material. Some have added inserts to their tax bills with our key information. All of these materials are a way to provide clearer understanding around the assessment update. Many have viewed or will be playing tonight MPAC's video. Preliminary market trends. New for 2016 are the market trend maps that have been made accessible through About My Property. And the next slide shows you visually what they look like. So in the market trends area on About My Property, there's no login required. So by entering just the name of a place or a specific area, you can look at the sales trends and compare to other areas. For assessment for your property, you can log in with the login that's provided on your notice, but these maps will show sales trends and percentage changes in a given area. The larger areas will represent larger concentration of properties, and the smaller bubbles mean fewer homes, but you can hone in visually on the areas that you want to look at. So next, specific to Port Colborne. So this is the assessment change in terms of represented as a percentage. It's the median percentage change in assessed value from the taxation year 2016 to 2017. So overall residentially across the Niagara region, we're looking at a 3.4% increase, and in Port Colborne, we're looking at a 2.2%. For single family residential, so for just your typical house, across the region on average, you're looking at a 3.4%, and in Port Colborne, a 2.3% increase. And for condominiums, 2.7%, and actually condos in Port Colborne are going down 3.7%. And the final slide represents, for Port Colborne, a typical assessed value. So this is the change in assessed value between the 2016 tax year, so the 2012 value, to the full 2016 value that will be realized in 2020. And the typical assessed value for a single-family home in Port Colborne is $176,000, and this is an increase of $14,000 from the 2012 value to the 2016 value. And the condominiums, like was shown on the previous slide, the typical value is $130,000, and this represents a $5,000 assessment decrease. So before I take questions, I'm just going to have Donnie play the quick video, which just explains the relationship between taxation and assessment, and then I'll answer.
How long is your video?
Just 3 minutes.
How long?
3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay.
Okay, I want to explain to you how your property taxes are calculated based on how much your home is worth. Imagine there's a town that only has 3 homes, and they're each worth a different amount. The total cost to provide all of their town's services is $1,000. This is collected through property taxes. Each homeowner pays property taxes based on how much their home is worth. So, the value of all the homes are added up and divided by the town's cost, which gives us the tax rate. This tax rate is applied to all the houses to get enough money to pay for all of the services. So, each homeowner pays according to how much their house is worth. Every 4 years, the houses are reassessed. Let's say all 3 properties have gone up equally in value. If we go back to our calculation, the total cost of services hasn't changed, but the total property value has increased. When this happens, there will be a decrease in the tax rate. Now, when we apply that new rate on all homes, everyone still pays the same. Let's recap. Property taxes are based on what a home is worth. If reassessments all increase equally, then everyone pays the same taxes as before. Now, let's say another 4 years has gone by and these homes are reassessed. During this time, the house on the right became more valuable in the market than the other 2. Okay, so time for a little more math. The total value of all the homes have increased, which means the town has to calculate a new tax rate. With this new tax rate, the first 2 homes will actually pay less than the home on the right that was reassessed at a higher value. Since the cost of services hasn't changed, the town doesn't need to collect more property taxes. However, since property taxes are based on a home's value, those taxes could potentially go up or down based on the rest of the homes. So, what happens when the cost to provide services goes up? Well, it means more property taxes need to be collected from every home, and a new tax rate is calculated. To get the new rate, we take that amount that the town now needs and divide it by all the property values. The new rate is applied to all the homes, and now everyone has to pay the new tax amount to continue to fund all of the services. So, let's review. 1. Property taxes are based on the value of a home. When homes are reassessed equally, each homeowner will pay the same amount proportionately as before. 2. When homes are reassessed at different values, each homeowner will pay a different amount proportionately based on how much their home increased in value. 3. When the town's cost to provide services increases, a property tax increase, then everyone pays their share proportionately across the board. And that explains the relationship between property value and property taxes.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Do we have questions from members of council? There being none, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
It's a very important issue that I'm sure you'll receive many calls.
Many calls, but please have people pay attention to their notice. It's important. Yes, thank you.
Next delegation, I have Mr. Hugo Cheshire, who's a Policy and Government Relations Manager, Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Cheshire.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public. My name is Hugo Cheshire, and I am still the Government Relations Manager at the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. I was here about a month ago, talking about the same issue, so I will be brief and not repeat myself too much. I hope you bear with me. Okay. Last time I spoke, I observed that the fees for sidewalk encroachments in Port Colborne were particularly onerous on top of the taxes for commercial shops in the city. I spoke in support of the delegation made by the Downtown Business Improvement Area, which asked you to reconsider these fees. And so there was a staff report, which you now have before you, and I would like to comment on that, if I may. The report recommends that the existing fee structure remain in place until new policies can be reviewed and approved. This is not, unfortunately, a policy that will foster business growth and prosperity in Port Colborne. You've heard from myself and the BIA and from local business owners that this fee structure is actually a disincentive to do business in Port Colborne, and it is having a negative effect on local businesses. On the last page of the report, which I have somewhere here we are, you see a comparison between the various municipalities in Niagara and their fee structures. Now, as you're aware, user fees and taxes sort of represent opposite ends of a policy spectrum. On the one hand, you have your user fees, which say that government services or certain government services benefit certain people, and those people should pay for those services. It seems only fair. On the other hand, you have services through taxation, which say the services the government provides are a public good for everyone, and therefore the burden should be shared amongst everyone as well. The current structure in Port Colborne essentially combines a substantial fee with high taxes as well. So it's essentially occupying both ends of the spectrum at the same time. As I stated when I was last here, Port Colborne's property tax rates for neighborhood shops are the highest in Niagara. Now, for example, you might say, according to the schedule you have, that Port Colborne's encroachment fees are $290 less than Niagara on the Lakes, and that sounds good until you realize if you had a small neighborhood shop of 1,000 square feet, you would pay $780 a year more in taxes if you were in Port Colborne compared to Niagara on the Lake. Now, the average municipality in Niagara will charge $93 more than Port Colborne for a sidewalk encroachment where it's permitted, although if you exclude Wainfleet from those numbers, which is kind of an outlier, that's only $17 more. However, the average municipality on that 1,000 square foot small store will also levy $600 less per year in property taxes as well. Now, in municipal property tax rates, Port Colborne is tied with Pelham for having the highest levy on neighborhood shops in Niagara. So the only real apples-to-apples comparison you can make is with Pelham, and you notice Pelham doesn't charge fees for these sidewalk encroachments. So, as I said, I have kept it brief. On behalf of your business community, I urge you not to continue with the current fee structure. If a review of bylaws, procedures, and fee structures is pending, I believe that the best thing to do and the best thing for the prosperity, the economic growth, and for job creation in Port Colborne is to waive these fees in the interim. Thank you. That's all I have. I will take any more questions that you have since last time.
Thank you, Mr. Cheshire. Are there any questions of the presenter? There being none?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheshire. Mr. Cheshire's area of concern is on the items for consideration. Would council prefer to go to that item right now, which would allow Mr. Cheshire to lead, or would you wish to proceed through the agenda as usual? And I'll be making a similar request for the Pleasant Beach delegations.
I'm willing to do that, sir, since I pulled that item.
You have a seconder, Mrs. Kenny. Councilor Butters? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Councilors' items for discussion. Number 11 is Mr. Cheshire's issue. Anyone want to deal with that one? Madam Kenny? Seconder? Mr. May? Go ahead, Madam Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 11, Planning and Development by Law Enforcement Division Report number 2016-129, subject encroachment fees. The recommendation is that the existing fee structure for encroachments remain as it is till such time as a new bylaw policy, procedures, and fee structure can be presented to council for consideration.
Discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I pulled this because I was concerned about several things. One being in that document that the presenter was talking about. I believe page 3. I think it's page 3 of 3 that we were given on that. In Port Colborne, it says that a $5 million liability if on SLSMC property or serving alcohol, and $2 million for other encroachments. Well, I believe that we've been told that all the property along that West Street area is on that St. Lawrence Seaway property, right? So I guess I was concerned because we did have one business owner who was told that she had to have a $5 million policy, that $2 million wasn't good enough, and yet I see it in a report coming to us. She was told she had to get $5 million liability, and I thought the $5 million was just if you were serving alcohol, and this document in front of us basically says that, Mr. Mayor. I was disappointed. I was disappointed because when the members came and this was brought up, I thought for sure when this report was going to come forward to us that we would have had a better recommendation than leave things as is. Because I'm not in favor of that. Not at all. I support the speaker's comments that until that time, I honestly think that that fee should be waived until we can get our act together. And we obviously don't have it together, Your Worship, if we're coming back with a report 2 months later that says the same thing as it did when it left us. So I'd like to hear comments from the rest of my council members about that. I can't just tell you how disappointed I was when I got this report. And that was the recommendation. So I'll leave my comments to that right now, Mr. Mayor, and let's hear from other members of council on their feelings on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kenny. Further comments from members of council? Councilor Butters and Councilor May.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just say that it disturbs me that we're not more in line with surrounding municipalities. And if we're putting our businesses at that much of a disadvantage, then we need to look at that review sooner than later, obviously. And I would agree with Councillor Kenny until that's done to waive them.
Councilor May.
It's my only question, and I think I asked it last council meeting when the people from Market Cafe were getting their encroachment. that if the new bylaw does come out and we decide to go that way through council, they will be getting reimbursed for the money they paid under the old rate. And I have to ask Dan this question. Dan, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Dan, how long is this bylaw going to take to come back to council? Do you have any idea?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Maine, Sherry Hansen advises me that it's being reviewed right now by senior staff and needs to be reviewed by legal. Once that is done, the report will be coming back to council. I'm going to ballpark, without putting our city solicitor under the microscope and under the gun, I'm going to say 1 to 2 months may be a fair time for it to come back to council.
Mr. Wayne.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, back to Dan. So what we talked about at the last meeting would still be in effect, that if we come back in 2 months and we decide to go to a zero encroachment, these people will be reimbursed.
Through Mr. Mayor to Council Maine, that is correct.
Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Any further questions? Councillor Brodner?
I guess just following up on Councillor Maine's comments, then why do we need to change anything if we do decide to, to change this and people are reimbursed, why can't it just stay the same as it is right now? Because if we're going to change it and reimburse them, then there's no loss of money. It just seems, I think, a wasted exercise to go that route. So leave it until we get the report back and see what's going on. We may decide to leave it the same. Who knows?
Mr. Aquilini, do you have any comments on?
Just one comment with regards to the liability. St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation requires the $5 million liability. That's why we have that as a requirement. And that is along West Street or any lands that people have an encroachment with the St. Lawrence Seaway. That also includes the municipality's lands.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Kenny, you're looking...
Well, I'm looking questionably at that because the report says, right in front of me, that it's $2 million on other encroachments. You said the report's right in front of me. It's in black and white. $5 million liability on the St. Lawrence Seaway properties that we have a lease agreement with, and then $2 million on other. So are you saying that every individual property owner on West Street, doesn't matter if they serve alcohol or not, are going to be paying a $5 million liability insurance? And then anybody else, like I have a question later on under councillor's item about King Street, those people only pay $2. So we're not being very fair, really, to our business owners. Just because you happen to have your business on West Street, you're paying more money than the person who has his business on another street. But they're all business people. They all pay to the BIA. They're all members of that BIA. So I guess I'm a little puzzled. Yes, Your Worship, I am. And just to Councillor Bodner's comment about, and Councillor Maine's comment about let them pay and then they can be reimbursed. If we're considering, and I think a lot of us are considering waiving these fees, why are we going through that exercise? Your Worship, I don't understand. Why are we going through the exercise of them handing them money and then we're going to look at that in another 3 months, and then in 3 months maybe we're going to give them their money back, or maybe we're not going to give them all their money back. Maybe we're only going to give half of it back, or maybe we're only going to give 10 cents back. Just wait until it's in order and in place, instead of us always looking like we're not prepared.
Mr. Aquilini.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kenny, again, all of the lands along West Street are under the jurisdiction of the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation. We cannot get away with the $5 million liability. If there are any encroachments on municipal land, we then review actually what they're encroaching, what they're using the land for, review with our insurance provider. If they're serving alcohol or any other thing that is a risk to the municipality, we then require the $5 million. If we determine that's not, that's when the $2 million liability comes in. Encroachments in the downtown, we currently have a $150 application fee because it's within the CIP area. Other applications outside the CIP areas pay the $300. And again, depending upon what the encroachment is, the liability, that determines the insurance.
Councilor Kenny, any further comments on following Mr. Ackerling's remarks?
No, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor?
no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a statement to Dan. So even if there was no charges on encroachment, there was the $300 initiation fee and the $50 a year, the $5 million and the $2 million would be there regardless, right? It wouldn't be an issue on the encroachment. It's the insurance you need.
Through Mr. Mayor, that is correct. We require the insurance regardless of what the fee is.
Thank you.
Is council ready to proceed in this issue? All those in favor? 1, 2. All those opposed? 3. Motion fails. Matter is concluded. I'd like to call on the next delegation. Yeah.
We have to send it back to
Okay, I had mentioned previously with Mr. Cheshire that we would deal with this item so that it didn't have to stay to the sort of end. Similarly, we have another issue with items 11 and 10 or 4 and 10 deal with the Pleasant Beach Road. I'm suggesting that we hear from the delegation and that we then move on to items 4 and 10 for further discussion and to be dealt with. I'd look for direction of council as to how you wish us to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would say then that we would be looking to waive the fee until that report comes back for the encroachment.
But I'm sorry, we've already dealt with that issue.
Yes, that one's been voted down,
Yes.
but you can't leave nothing in place though,
We need
can
an
you?
alternative, so this is a viable alternative. So she
This
gets
is
a
the
second here.
alternative to this
You wish
report.
to make a motion then, Councilor Butler.
That I'm moving that the fees be waived until the report comes back to us, and then we will deal with it in its entirety then. Of course, the insurance portion of it still has to be in place. The liability insurance portion still has to be in place, but the fee itself is waived.
Is everyone clear on the motion? Do we have a seconder for that motion? All those in favor? Councilor Butters? Kenny. Are those in favor again? Sorry, I've got the light in my eyes. All those against? So that motion is carried. Now, Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, just for clarification, if the fees are going to be waived, and if council then gets the report and then has a fee, are we then going back to the individuals that got the encroachment without paying a fee and charging them?
Mr. Louis, do you care to? Councilor Bonner?
They're temporary waived.
Councilor Bonner has the floor.
Sure, so this is a concern. I can see where, if you were to give the money back, that's not a problem. When you go and retroactively ask for the money, if it comes back again, that's going to be, but it should be fair one way or the other, right? If that report comes and it suggests that those fees stay the same, and we vote on it and they stay the same, then they have to ante up the money, right?
Right. We'll wait for now until the report comes back.
In point of order, Your Worship, this discussion is over. We voted on it, and that's the way it is.
Fine.
Thank you.
I agree. Now, so again, moving on to our delegations from Pleasant Beach Road. We've got 2 items for discussion on the agenda. Would you prefer, looking for council's direction, which I haven't received yet, whether we would hear those delegations and deal with it, items 4 and 10? Yes, Councilor Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd suggest that we hear the delegations and then we'll go to number 4 and 10 so that their items can be dealt with.
Thank you. Mr. Barta and Heather McDougall. Could you come forward, please? Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff, and residents. This is regarding Pleasant Beach Road traffic concerns. The concern for safety for all residents, campground pedestrians, and easy access to the fire lanes is a problem that should not be fixed with a Band-Aid. Hopefully someday there will not be a fired, injured person or accident, and the emergency vehicles, fire, police, and ambulance will be able to get through and actually turn around and get the person safely away. The volume of cars is a real problem. By choosing not to eliminate the parking to Michener Road, and by not removing the disgusting porta pot, the City of Port Colborne is encouraging the people to come down. The filthy, disgusting porta pot does nothing to correct these issues. Ashley, did you get pictures to go along with them?
Attached to your comments.
Thank you. Sorry about that. When driving down Pleasant Beach Road to our cottage on the weekend with cars parked all the way to Michener Road, we have to drive on the wrong side of the road as people are parked half on and half off the road. Pedestrians sometimes walk 4 or more wide, carrying coolers, cooking devices, flotation devices, and canopies. They can't see anything except for what is in front of them. We're already going slow, so the speed limit change is irrelevant. How does changing the speed limit remedy an overly congested dead-end roadway? With a small beach area at the road end, residents and campground people have to go down very early in the morning to even get a place to set up their families for a fun time at the beach. There is not room for another 50 to 100 cars full of beachgoers to come who block the west side of Pleasant Beach Road and fill up the road end and leave behind their garbage instead of taking it home and leave the porta pot in shambles. The new sign is a good attempt but needs further improvements. You have to come to a complete stop to read it as it is behind trees. At a quick glance, you would think that the other beaches available were up the road towards Fort Erie. But after looking closer, you have to turn the map upside down and put the water in front, and that means that the beaches are the other way back to the City of Port Colborne. Some people have even said to me, it looks like a development sign. For people from out of the area, they will just simply see water straight ahead and keep on going. The placement of the sign should be way back at Highway 3, as well as a dead-end sign erected at Michener Road. There is even more congestion when vehicles are parked in no parking areas and blocking driveways. We are also getting mixed messages as to whether bylaw can or will call for a tow. Ms. Hanson advised us at the meeting that they could tow if a driveway was blocked. Have there been any vehicles towed to date, as numerous driveways have been blocked this summer? Wildwood Road residents tell us that they had a similar problem a few years back, and after the new high-end homes were built, the problem went away. We visited this road recently, and there were literally no cars there, no huge stinking stockpile of garbage, no trash on the beach. There is no porta pot at this road end. We even had access to drive up and down on the proper sides of the road. Please explain how this issue got resolved. Council may be looking at this as a 3 or 4 month problem. However, we pay the same full taxes as every other resident of the city. By not correcting these issues properly creates a distrust of city officials to willingly deal with the legitimate concerns of the residents. Do you want me to address the garbage issue at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. The stockpile for Pleasant Beach is handling garbage from fire lanes 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. Explain why we are the only site that has 6 fire lanes dumping into the same disgusting pile on the main road across from a restaurant can't understand that. We are paying taxes for everyone else's garbage to be picked up in a civilized manner at their laneway. If tree branches and wires are a problem for the trucks, then it is about time that these things were attended to. Put our tax dollars to work in our area. Hydro comes in and clears branches that are hazardous to the power supply. Terra picks up garbage at numerous dead-end streets. Dead-end roads are everywhere throughout the Niagara region. After taking a drive through the city of Port Colborne, we found numerous dead ends, and after speaking to some of the residents of these streets, they do get full garbage service and pay the same yearly taxes Pleasant Beach residents do. Some of these streets are Reed Road, Young Road South, Orchard Court, Laketown Drive, David Street, Catherine Street, Johnson Street, Bell Street, Christmas Street. How do we differ? Roads that can handle water and sewage trucks should be able to handle some type of garbage disposal trucks. After speaking to the garbage truck operator, he stated there was nothing like the Pleasant Beach stockpile that he has to deal with in the city. Some residents were actually out with a shovel scraping up the leftover garbage and sludgy slime left from the heap of garbage after the garbage truck had gone for that day. Yuck. We have recently sighted 3 or more foxes in our area, and also raccoons and skunks are loving the stockpile of garbage at any given night. The city already has collected our tax dollars, which should be used to pay for our garbage to be removed in a sanitary, respectful fashion like all other citizens in the city. There seems to be too much money for many other things. For too many years, the residents of the Pleasant Beach fire lanes have been woefully underserviced. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Varda. Ms. McDougall, you don't have anything separately to say? Okay, thank you. Were there questions of council? I wonder if you can come back to the podium. Are there questions of the members of council? Just come back here if you wouldn't mind. Councilor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to, first off, I wanted to start by thanking Ron and Heather for a lot of work to put this together for us, and a lot of the residents are here. I've made it a point to send me pictures, which I have forwarded to the mayor, to CAO Louis, to everybody really, different staff people, to really show what is happening at the end of Pleasant Beach Road. If a picture speaks 1,000 words, you know, if you got a porta potty that looks like this, it's pretty disgusting. This is just at the end of the road where, unfortunately, you know, those recycling bins, they get contaminated because I guess the beach goers, whoever, is putting garbage in them when it's supposed to be recycling. So that means the recycling truck comes around from the region, Terra, and they're not going to pick it up because it's contaminated with garbage. Our staff has gone out and cleaned it out. The residents have gone out with rakes and shovels and they've cleaned it up. It is, to say that it's horrible is an understatement. And so to all of you that keep sending, take your time that you take photographs and you send them in to us. I appreciate the effort because that's, I think, the only way it's going to get across, that this is a situation that cannot continue the way it is. If you look at the pictures of the traffic, and this is not you know, an unusual picture, and there are cars all up Pleasant Beach Road, and it's on the west side of the road. I myself, I don't understand why we would continue to allow this. I think personally, when it comes to this report, you know, we're going to have to really look at how we're going to do this, and I don't think allowing that kind of parking is going to be okay. It's not going to be okay with me, I can tell you that. So I would just, I don't have anything more at this point, but thank you so much for putting all this together. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We did have a few questions in there.
Yes.
Like, has there been any tows, and were things changed on Wildwood? Like, we would really like some answers to those things.
Ms. Hanson, can you comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
There have been some tows. We have called a tow truck on several occasions. Sometimes the people get back to their vehicle prior to the tow truck leaving, but we have towed some vehicles.
Thank you. What was the second question?
About Wildwood.
About Wildwood Road. That road has cleared itself up, but the residents there say it didn't clear itself up until 2 mansion-style homes were built on the corner of the beach off of Wildwood Road at the road end. And they said all of a sudden the problem went away. We no longer have cars parked along our roadway. We were as bad, if not worse, than Pleasant Beach Road at one time.
Sampson, are you in a position to comment on what happened on Wildwood?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the parking regulations on Wildwood Road have been in the bylaw since the 89-2000 back in 1989. I don't recall any improvements to that area in the last 25 years.
So what corrected the problem?
There wasn't a car there.
Wasn't a car there. We went down and...
And we had just come from those other pictures.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what happened.
And I did have another question, if you don't mind.
Could I ask Council Butters to make comment first?
Just on Wildwood Road, are they permitted to park on both sides of the road down Wildwood? Do you remember?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it has the same restrictions on Wildwood as Pleasant Beach, where there's no parking on one side and no parking between 12 and 6 a.m. on the other side, and angle parking on both sides at the dead end.
Okay, thanks.
Generally, Council asks the questions, but this is an important issue, and I'd like to hear from you, sir. Go ahead, you have another question.
It was about the porta pot and the questionnaire that we filled out a few weeks ago that we see in the results in the agenda. And the results of that stated that most people wanted the porta pot gone, and there was no action going to be taken on it. And I don't understand that. If you send out a questionnaire and you want people's input and then you don't follow it, what is the sense of sending out a questionnaire to people to fill out? It doesn't seem that it's got any relevancy to me then.
Council has not finished dealing with this issue. Any other questions, Councilor Kenny?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for giving all of us a copy of that. That's great. So this problem that we have at this particular beach area has only reared its head this year?
No.
Okay,
It has been ongoing for probably the last 3 years.
And it just keeps getting worse?
Worse, as word of mouth spreads.
Well, we're new owners there, so you would have to ask people that have lived there for years, but I think it's really bad last summer.
Okay, thank you.
As well.
Thanks. That's all. Thank you.
Councilor Main, did you have a question?
No, I just think it's time some action gets taken, that's all.
Thank you. On my left, any questions of the delegation? Councilor Bodnar?
We're going to be looking at these two items.
Yes.
As they come forward, so I have some questions for
Okay.
at that time.
All right. Are we prepared to go ahead and deal with the items on the agenda? Then we'll do so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barta and Ms. McDougall. Okay, I'll entertain someone to deal with item number 4. Councilor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Engineering and Operations, Engineering Division, report number 2016-125. Subject, Region of Niagara Waste Collection Services, Ward 4 Fire Lane Status Update.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Danch. Discussion? Councilor Butters.
Well, obviously, I wasn't too happy, I guess, with this report because it basically says, you know, status quo and we'll keep on working with the region, which I'm not, I don't know, I just don't know what else they're going to come up with. My husband's fond of saying, you know, don't just bring me a problem, bring me a solution. So as I've really mulled this over in my head, and the only thing I can come up with is that this garbage depot should not be where it is. It has got to be moved, and my suggestion is that we seriously look at, we know we own a couple of fire lanes down there, seriously look at is there a way to create, even if it's 2 separate depots, one for garbage and one for the recycling bins. Get them off Pleasant Beach Road, get them off the entrance to the beach, get them on to one of the areas that we own that is off the main drag, we'll say, and not so easily noticeable and accessible. Still have the garbage cans out there for beachgoers, because I think it's in our city, people empty those on a regular basis. So I think that's important to have that available. But get the residential side of this off the end of that road, because otherwise I don't see any end in sight to this. If somebody else has got a better idea or some other solution, I'm all ears to hear it. But the way this report is, it just is not going, doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Butters. Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as long as we have a depot or some place where the garbage is dumped, we're going to have a problem. It's just a magnet. There's no way to fix that problem. Yeah, we could put it maybe at the end of a fire lane, and getting it off of the road and visible is, a good first step. But question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Hanson. In this report, it clearly states that MTerra has no desire to go down any of those fire lanes or even attempt to. They say they can't do it. Mr. Barta has brought up something that, if I understand it correctly, wants to see tax dollars spent on those fire lanes, clearing branches and making it sounds more desirable for that truck to get down. I would like to hear your comments on that part of it, because it was a question. If I'm interpreting it wrong, Ron, please say, but I think that's what you were mentioning, and he's nodding his head, so that's what it was. So can you comment on that, spending tax dollars on those fire lanes?
Mr. Hanson.
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bodnar. There's a couple considerations here, and partially to answer Councilor Butters' comment as well. There is one additional suggestion that we, again, when we talk about status quo, when I talk about status quo in the report, I was talking about the routes themselves, the driving of the routes. And I think it's very clear from MTerra's letter, while they would like to collect additional garbage and get extra fees for doing that, it's not physically possible to collect on the current fire lanes the way they are now. And secondly, they make it very clear in their last paragraph of their letter that it would be economically, it would be not feasible to provide the service on the fire lanes as they sit now. So at the present time, we haven't looked at any type of a capital upgrade to any of the fire lanes in terms of being able to improve them so that the garbage packers could actually physically go down these routes. We haven't looked at that yet, and council can debate that issue, whether they would want to expend funds to do that, and it could be a council budget decision discussion in the coming year. Secondly, when we talked in the report about further working with the region, we don't intend to just leave this as it is. In talking to the region, we have another good suggestion, I think, which is cost effective, and it's something that won't solve the problem completely with waste management, but it's an improvement to it, and it would be a second day collection at the tip-off point at Pleasant Beach Road. And we've acquired a price through the region to make a second collection, and the suggestion would be if the waste collection is on Mondays, we'd have a second collection on Wednesdays. We have a price to do that. It's $528 per pickup. So if we looked at that, and that includes both waste collection and recycling totes as well. And if we look at doing that as a possible interim solution, 9 weeks of doing that each year, covering July and August, if that's the key points, would be about $4,700 a year. If we want to cover collection between May 24 and Labor Day, we'd be looking at about $8,400, $8,400 to $8,500 collection for that additional day's collection on Pleasant Beach Road. We think that's very cost effective, and it certainly would offset some of the delays when we're getting waste put out on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays now. that waste is sitting till the next Monday. And in essence, that's the problem out there. That's why the pile of garbage is there. There's waste being dumped on a daily basis in that area. So one other thing for consideration, unfortunately, I can't include this in the report right now. I just received this information today from the region, but I'll certainly follow up tomorrow to council with these prices, and it's a matter of consideration in the discussions tonight, and it could be a short-term alternative to improving the waste management in the area. Again, in answer to your question, Councillor Bodner, we would have to make considerations for capital improvements to the fire lanes. We haven't done that in the past. A couple of those fire lanes are ours now by ownership, and we had talked about and recommended doing some improvements. We've done a little bit of pothole filling to date, but there's going to be a minimum maintenance standard for the fire lanes that we own that will be forthcoming to council to do that work. But that certainly wouldn't answer the question of getting full-size garbage packers on all the fire lanes as they are now. So curbside collection is not an option at this point, both from a practical, physical point of view and also from an economic point of view.
Mr. Bonner.
Thank you. So I guess a general question to the residents that are here. So it seems to me, simplistically, if you made improvements to your fire lanes that you own, then it wouldn't be a problem for us to spend the extra money in garbage collection like everybody else in the city gets, that the garbage truck would go down. It would cost more, but that seems to be a normal part of business. You know, I mean, everybody else gets that service. It's just up to the residents to improve the fire lanes that they live on. You know, I mean, the ones that are owned by the city, that's another story. But fire lanes, like the one I live on, are improved by the residents that live there. It's just a matter of you putting out the money to do it. And then we'll send garbage trucks down. Or we'll make sure the collection that we would pay to have those fire trucks come down. So that would be, to my mind, a simple solution. You make your fire lanes so the garbage trucks can get down. We'll pay the extra to have the collection done at your house. And what's the problem there? So I'm just throwing that out as another option.
To the chair, right?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. So and you know, if we pass this tonight and put restrictions on Pleasant Beach Road in parking and everything, and we were able to get the beach under control without a lot of extra people down there dumping garbage, that certainly would help also. But you know, that's just a statement. So
thank you,
we'll see.
Mr. Bonder.
Thanks.
Councillor Butters and Councillor Kenny.
I just want to follow up, Mr. Mayor, on something Councillor Bodner, or no, I guess it was Mr. Hanson said about a Monday, Wednesday, additional pickup on Wednesday, but I don't know that. Thursday. Pardon? Thursday. Thursday? I thought you said, I'm sorry, I thought you said Wednesday. So I'm wondering, like, if some of the residents, if a Monday, which is the normal one, and then adding Thursday, if the residents kind of think that that would help alleviate, if any one of them, even if you put up your hand, you think an extra day on Thursday would help alleviate the problem.
No.
Okay.
Okay, too, but you have to have the mayor recognize you. I'm just wondering from the residents' point of view.
It's not usual, they have a straw poll, but Councillor Butters has asked for a straw poll. Do you think that extra pickup on Thursday would alleviate your problem?
No.
No, that's the question.
Okay.
Answer.
Okay.
Councillor
Thanks.
Kenny? Councillor Kenny?
You have to get the garbage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron and I had a chat about this when I was sitting in your office. And what I wanted to know, Ron, on the fire lanes that we presently own, do we send a truck down there on fire lanes that we presently know we own? Do we send a truck to collect waste?
Mr. Hanson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, specifically to the Pleasant Beach area, we own 2 of the fire lanes there. We don't currently have waste collection on either of those fire lanes. They are basically in the same condition as the others in terms of surface overhangs and everything else. So there currently isn't a collection of those 2.
There is, or there is?
No, there isn't.
There is not. So the first step then is we have to make, you're the roads guy too, right? So we have to make improvements to the road to take the weight of the truck? Is that what you're suggesting, to pick up garbage there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's 2 overriding issues there. Council hasn't decided that we're going to bring the city-owned fire lanes up to a municipal standard whereby garbage trucks would be able to use them. We've discussed previously in our previous reports, they would be brought up to a minimum maintenance standard for fire lanes, as we were advised by our solicitor. So that's the plan going forward. We will bring that to council. They won't necessarily be in a condition that the garbage packers would be able to access them without damage. If council directs that we bring them up to that standard, certainly that can be done at a cost, and we would have to bring that forward as a budget item.
Okay. So another question then, because like Councillor Main said, we have to bring this to some kind of answer, and I know it's just as frustrating for everyone that's sitting there thinking like they pay taxes and they're not getting that service, and I definitely feel that that service should be given. So why can't we then, we as a municipality, I see we have those smaller trucks, why can't we go down those laneways and pick up that garbage and bring it out to the road where the region then would pick it up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kenny, we're not a licensed waste hauler in Ontario. We have the ability with our small packer to pick up our street waste containers, but we are not a licensed waste hauler, and we're not prepared to do that. It's just not in our mandate to do that. Waste collection is a responsibility of the region, and that's where the tax dollars go to the region to do it.
And so this amount that in this letter we got from the operations manager that says that the cost of a waste collection vehicle would be around $150,000.
Correct.
And that $150,000 then would handle all the laneways then because it's a smaller type, I think it's good. And then he says there are no companies presently leasing this type of truck, but have we looked at that ourselves? I mean, he's telling you that, and do not to dismiss his comments, but have we looked at that ourselves?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the letter also points out, besides the size of the truck, the 4 waste streams that would have to be picked up would mean 4 routes by the same truck. So that physically is not possible. The timing would be impossible to actually run that back and forth the number of times that you'd have to pick up all the streams if there was curbside set out. So that's not physically possible as well to have it with one small truck.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions of council? I've entertained a question before from the audience. I'll do so again. Mr. Barter?
Thank you.
We're trying to resolve this issue.
Yes, I understand that, and that's fine. There is no separation of garbage at this point. So I can understand Mr. Hansen's view that normally you have 4 different items being picked up. There is no separation of items here. So when that garbage truck comes down, he comes down one and picks up everything together. And if it is mixed, he will not pick it up. That's why so much is left behind. And so I don't understand the 4 trips when we are not getting 4 trips now because nothing is separated. Thank you.
The recycling totes that are out there and it has a Tuesday collection as opposed to the household waste that are collected Monday. There are recycling bins there for recycling. The problem is, as Mr. Barter points out, is that the recycling component is totally contaminated, and while they will still pick it up, it's strictly going to a landfill site because it is contaminated. To date, we haven't realized any charges from the region, even though they are doing these extra collections. We had an incident last week where they went out on an I believe it was a Thursday or Friday last week and collected. We haven't been charged for that as yet, but there has the possibility for separate streams, but if the streams are contaminated, then it's all for naught in terms of cost.
Thank you. Councilor Butters, we have to draw this to a
I think,
conclusion.
I don't want I don't want to leave this the way it is right now, because right now, it is just gonna go on until, I guess, hell freezes over. If we don't move that garbage depot out of there, this is gonna continue. That's the bottom line here. And I think that our staff needs to be instructed to find a different place. You know, I mean, to me, it's like you send the extra truck around at $4,700 or $8,400. What if we just work with the Pleasant Beach Association and they didn't want to pay $5,000 to pick up garbage that the region needs to take care of? Wouldn't it just make as much sense of anything if we can make a deal with the Pleasant Beach, the club there, to build that enclosure? Is that even a possibility? And we pay for it. Then at least the garbage is contained, you know, maybe hidden somewhat, or on one of our properties. Like, we need to do something. It's not good enough to say, well, you know, the residents are telling you an extra truck is not gonna help this situation. We gotta get the garbage depot the heck out of there. And whether that's on one of our properties on the fire lanes or somewhere else, I think that's where we would go with this. Thank you.
Whatever motion goes first.
That's right. I think that's actually, but she's not a delegate, so you'd have to wait for procedural bylaw, which might be this week in free for all too.
Any of them want to speak? Not delegate. I'm getting more of an opinion that this matter should be a further discussion going between the Beach Association and our forces at least, if not the region as well. But there's a lady at the back who is awful anxious to speak, but I would not invite her to speak without council's direction. Are you prepared to have this lady comment?
Yes.
Yes.
And that will be the end of it?
Well,
all those in favor?
Come up and speak.
Frustrating as hell.
I'll move it.
Seconder? Mr. Hanson, you have a question?
All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, in answer to Councilor Butter's question, the region approached the Pleasant Beach Association last year. The idea was that we'd put the enclosure on their property next to their clubhouse, and they didn't want to do that. So that idea was dropped. The idea was to have larger waste containers rather than totes on the Pleasant Beach Association property next to their clubhouse. We made that effort through the region, and that was turned down by the Pleasant Beach Association last year.
Thank
Just
you
to be clear on that.
For your comment. We're going to vote on this motion to allow another individual to speak?
Yes.
Yep.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Madam, could you come forward? Please come forward.
Up here?
Up here.
Come up here. The magic of COGECO land, everybody will hear you.
And could we have your name and address?
Christine Zwagstra, 250 Pleasant Beach, 395 Fire Lane 24, and 5401 Fire Lane 24. So
Thank you,
I have 3 properties there. I have the restaurant, Mr. Mayor, on Pleasant Beach Road, and I thought of a suggestion. I don't know if anybody got my letters, but the problem is that you put the bins on the Pleasant Beach Road, which screams this is a garbage dump. Take those bins away, those gray bins, those blue bins. We don't need that. All us residents do our garbage on Monday morning. We drive from Smithville, because that's where I live. It's Monday, gotta go do garbage. And we bring our garbage. If we catch anyone bringing garbage other than that day, we yell at them and they put it in their van and they leave. So, and we chase people to Welland with mattresses and fridges. Tom. But yeah, it screams this is a dump. So you put your nice pail at the end of the beach for people, nice people who come to the beach, and all people at the beach leave nothing but their footprints. We see it, there's nothing on that beach. It gets picked up. Now they come up to the top and they're gonna go to their car. Oh, there's a garbage dump. They drop it. If there's no dump, they'll go to their car and they'll take it home. So we'd like to see those removed. Tomorrow's garbage recycle pickup, there's 4 to 8 blue bins, 4 to 8 gray bins, which are cardboard. I'm going to take them away. I just want to take them away. I asked the region to take them away because we will bring our recycle in our packages and we'll bring our garbage in. I have locked bins. They have tied bins. We all bring it to the end of the road on Tuesdays and Mondays for garbage, Tuesdays recycle, and that's it. It's done. You don't need to spend any money. Take them away.
Good idea.
It works?
It will work because we are all considerate people of this beautiful township, city, whatever you call it, and we'll take care of it. And it's providing a dump is what's making the dump there. So take those gray bins away by the region and they're gone.
Is there questions on the delegate?
No,
Councilor Rodney?
I sympathize with you looking at that garbage.
Oh, right across from my
the
deck
way.
now.
I mean,
It's terrible.
I buried maggots last week with a shovel.
yeah, and I think you're right. It's a target.
Take it away.
Please
Take the dump,
garbage
take the toilet away. We don't need a toilet. If I have customers, they just come and ask if they can use my washroom. And they do, and we all have our own washrooms.
Thank you for comments.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions of this lady? Mr. Hanson, thank you. Is this a matter that perhaps further consideration that we can find a solution? I think it's a matter for deferral, I believe. If I have a motion from the floor, we would consider that.
Defer it or defer it?
Defer it
Why?
to the next meeting, 2 weeks
You have a
hence.
question?
Yes, Councilor Weathers.
Can we, if we defer it, can it be with some direction to staff to investigate, like as this lady said, taking them away, another place, another position? Can we have that as part of that?
I defer it pending a resolution of the problem. Defer it for 2 weeks.
Okay, but when are they going to come back? Like, don't we have to send direction?
I don't want to tie our hands to the suggestion that this lady made, that but there may be other possibilities as well.
Okay, so to come back with more? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? Okay, I'm good with that. I'll just come back with more.
Ron has a question.
Councilor Wagner?
Referring.
So in the meantime,
What they're supposed to do for 2 weeks, we'll pay that.
Mr. Hanson, how
So we need to know what.
much of a problem would it be, through you, Mr. Mayor, to get rid of those recycle bins that are obviously just collecting garbage? Is it something we can do tomorrow? You know?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those totes were put out there a couple of years ago to try to improve, I know it doesn't sound that way now, but try to improve the way of collecting at the end of the road, because there was piles of bagged garbage everywhere. And the totes were perceived to be an improvement in that they would be enclosed and more secure. What I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, is that if it's deferred for 2 weeks, that we consider bringing regional waste management staff down to answer specific questions. In fact, it's their mandate to do this waste management and the collection, and they've been 100% cooperative in every aspect in trying to solve some of these problems. So I would suggest we make contact with them tomorrow, if that's council's direction, and have them come in and do maybe an overview of their experience with Pleasant Beach, because they will tell you that they haven't seen anything like this in any of their other collection areas. So they can relate that experience and probably give you a better idea of what some of the options might be in terms of containerization. They can relate the stories about how they tried to find off-site areas for the waste. So I would suggest that council consider bringing them down for a presentation to answer questions on the problem.
Mrs. Butters?
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear from them, and I'd be happy for them to come down, but I would also like for our staff to be looking at where else the depot could be. Because, I mean, obviously, you know, residents have to have a way to get rid of their garbage, and that's fine. So I also would like, you know, kind of horizontal or in line with that, is for our staff to be looking over the next 2 weeks. Do we have room on fire lanes that we own? Is there other ways to do this? so that when Waste Management comes, we're going to be putting our heads together to come up with a solution to this. Because we have to find a way to get rid of this.
Thank you, Mrs. Butters. Madam Clerk, could you read back the motion as you understand it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion, as I understand it, is that the report be referred to the next meeting of council in order for staff to report back with further options concerning waste collection services on the Ward 4 fire lanes.
Are we agreed, Madam Butters?
Could you reread that? I didn't catch it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion is that the report be deferred to the next meeting of council in order for staff to come back with further options regarding waste collection services on the Ward 4 fire lanes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a second for that motion?
I made it.
You made it, but you can't second it. If there's no,
We're going to have discussion after a second.
yes. Go ahead, Councilor Butters. Bodner.
So I still, we're going to wait another 2 weeks. Everything remains the same. And then we may or may not make a decision after we hear from the region. Can't we make those collection bins go away? The ones that aren't working anyways? Is it, and I'm pretty sure I heard from the residents, and I know by driving down there, that there isn't, I don't believe there's 1 week that they can use those bins as recycling. They are every week garbage bins. So yeah, they might be holding some garbage bags, but you know, maybe the suggestion is right. Maybe people will take their garbage with them from the beach. I can't see those working no matter what the region tells us. I think they have to go. You know, I would like to make a friendly amendment to that while we're waiting, we get rid of those. And that porta potty doesn't seem to be doing its job. You know, in the meantime, I'd like to see that go. I mean, if it's unusable, why are we even having it there? Obviously, we're paying to have it.
The porta potty will be the next item that we'll discuss. Item number 10.
Oh, it's under parking, sorry.
Okay.
We're parking at the porta potty. Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
Is there a second, sir, for that friendly amendment? Are you agreeable? No, are you agreeable to the friendly amendment? Yes. Anytime. Okay, is everybody clear on the motion? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a small comment about garbage depots. I get a lot of complaints about the one from the arena or marina that Harry's been looking after. There's no way in God's green earth that much garbage comes out of those boaters. As long as there's a depot there, guy's got 3 bags of garbage to put out in front of his house. He doesn't want to pay the $4 for the slips. He drives out to there and he throws it out. And Harry can contest it, piles and piles of garbage. So everywhere somebody sees a depot, and it's not the residents, and who knows who it is. It's Tom, Dick, and Harry just driving around looking for a place to dump their garbage. If they weren't dumping it in a pile there, they'd be out on the end of Carl Road or out on the end of Miller Road, throwing it in the bush or throwing it in the ditch.
Thank you for your comments. I'm ready for the vote. All those in favor of the motion of deferral as amended? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. At least we're working on it, Mr. Barta. Item number 10. Do we have a mover and a seconder on that one? Moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Kenny.
Planning and Development Bylaw Enforcement Division Report number 2016-126, subject parking and traffic, Pleasant Beach Road.
Seconder is Councilor Butters. Yeah. Discussion. Councilor Butters.
Yeah, the part of this report that I would like to see changed is, and really the pictures are, that Mr. Barta gave us, really, that's what speaks volumes to me. There's a portion at the north end where you can, that it will be permitted to park on the west side and then just tow away between midnight and 6 a.m. and not permitted on the east side. And that's at the north end of Pleasant Beach Road. I think that whole area should be tow away. I don't think anybody should be allowed to park there. And these pictures show clearly that there's not enough room there. They've got a line up here as long as your arm. And all you have to do is look at the picture. Like, that road wasn't made for that at all. I don't have a problem with the angle parking in the area of the restaurant at all. But I really think that the other areas, that northerly area, there shouldn't be parking allowed on that west side. So other than that, you know, that's my only beef with this report, and I really appreciate the effort that's made to put this together, and I even appreciate the lowering of the speed zone through the speed limit through there. But I really would like to see that whole area, that towaway zone, other than the angle parking, that's fine, because the restaurant needs that too, and they do need some.
Thank you, Councilor Waters. Councilor Rogers.
I wonder if we could get Sherry to explain that exactly. I kind of know what Councilor Butters is talking about, but I get a little different look on that. Is that whole yellow area from where it says we're on page 93, I think it is, where we have a colored graph there? Is that whole yellow area a tollway zone? Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Hanson.
Mrs. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the tollway zone in those areas, the yellow area is a tollway zone. So if you look at the beach end to where the first red line comes across, that is just after the tree, kind of in between the tree and the checkerboard at the end, so that anybody that would be parking in those areas that they're getting caught in the sand, that's a no parking tollway zone. The green and blue lines that you see between the next two red lines, those are the angle parking, and there will be no parking between 12 and 6, so they can only angle park during the day. The next section is between the fire lanes, so that the fire department can have a turning radius in there, so that in between those fire lane areas, it's a tollway zone, so there'll be no parking whatsoever in that area. And then when you go down farther, on the east side, it is no parking tollway, and on the west side is no parking between 12 and 6, which is also a tollway if you park there. So the whole area that is yellow is all tollway zones.
Sorry, maybe, so I'm not quite understanding Councilor Butters' concern then. Can you, I know what you're saying, but I don't know whether I'm hearing the same thing, so can you enlighten us?
Well, the way I read it was 12 a.m. to 6 a.m.
That's correct.
So you can't, that's when you would get, if you park there between midnight and 6 a.m., you would get towed away. You can park there at 10 o'clock in the morning, so on that west side, you can park. And I actually called Dan because I was confused. I'm thinking, so the only time you're in trouble is if you're parked there between midnight and 6 a.m. The rest of the time, you're good to go. And that concerns me, because I don't think there should be parking along there. I think it should be the same on both sides of the road.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. That is between 12 and 6, that it is not allowed to have parking. The residents don't want to have people going down to the beach at night and hanging out at the beach. We have some concerns with some people that live in that area, that they have family or relatives or visitors, and that they park on the street when they visit. So we have allowed parking on one side of the street and restricted the rest.
Councillor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm not getting that at all.
Yeah,
I am not getting that at all. I don't think that that road is properly wide enough to have parking along that road. And if you look at the pictures, is it being suggested that all of the people who live down that road had all visitors on the weekend? Like, give me a break. This is where the problem is because they all know that they can go down there and park well, now they're getting ticketed. Thank God our bylaw folks have been out there and they're getting ticketed and told, and believe me, that's wonderful. But if you leave that open for people to park, that's not going to be good. That should be the same on both sides, tollways on both sides.
Mr. Bonner, do you concur?
Look, if we're gonna try to fix this problem, we've got to fix it. We can't have it half fixed. And I think Councillor Butters makes a good point where, you know, I guess, okay, so it's a big process and we'd have to go through public meetings if we decide to change this next year for some reason. But that's the nature of the beast. You know, if we implement it now with parking, no parking on both sides, just to get rid of the beach crowd, right? We got to break that cycle. You can't just almost do it. You got to do it, right? So I'm with Councillor Butters on that. And it may inconvenience some people, but how else are we going to make it really evident or you know, evident to people that thanks, but we really want you down there, you know, on the beach. So I think that's a really good idea, that we need to have that tollway zone on both sides. The only other thing is, I'm not really in favor of reducing that to 40 kilometers an hour. Just for the fact that I think that probably decent people will see if people are on the road and go the speed that they should. You could sign it at 10 kilometers an hour, and people that'll do 70 or 80 will do 70 or 80. The only thing that does is catches a local person in October on a nice day when you can't see anybody down that road and you tend to drive the speed that you think the road will take with nobody on there, and the police can be set up and, you know, you get nailed for 20 or 30 over the speed limit or something. I don't know, I just think decent people will do the right thing and slow down when they see people on the road. But if we make it 40, that's a long stretch for 40. And I think that, I believe it's 60 now. And I think, you know, I don't know, that's just my opinion on that. And I'd like to see that remain 60 rather than 40.
So we're in agreement, as I understand it, that both sides, east and west, of Pleasant Beach, would be no parking.
Except for the people parking which states.
In front of the restaurant.
As they've suggested.
Mr. Hanson? Mrs. Hanson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The parking was passed back in 1989 to have the parking on the west side of the road, similar to Wildwood Road. That was passed by council. It's mirroring Wildwood Road as I present it today. It would be the pleasure of council if they want to restrict it all. I'm just going by the surveys of people saying they also had people coming to visit, and that they cannot all park on their property, that they'd have to park on the street, so we allowed parking for one side.
I appreciate your comments, but as I understand it, this evening, we have consensus on removing parking on both sides of Pleasant Beach Road. We may be back here a year from now doing something different, but I think that is the consensus of perhaps the audience as well. I see a lot of nods out there.
At the pleasure of council, Mr. Mayor.
Could we have a motion for amendment accordingly?
Yeah.
Councilor Waters?
To amend that portion of the, to amend that portion to reflect that whole stretch is no parking and tow-away zone, both sides.
Is that clear enough? Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Bodnar. Second it?
You're gonna go Pleasant Beach, take something to something to something, and then.
Because I called for, well, it's gotta be good. We'd like to put this to bed. Yes, Mrs. Hanson.
May I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that we could make it seasonal when the problem occurs, that you would want this, and you could have the restricted parking from May to October with regards to the no parking when it seems to be an issue. That would resolve some of the issues, as well as the original parking in the area is 612 meters south of Michener Road. I know that Councillor Butter, as well as some other councillors, had mentioned that they wanted it to all the way to Michener Road, so you would have to do an amendment to that as well.
You've heard comments of staff on it being seasonal. Any comments from members of council?
That whole section, otherwise there'll be seasonal wide.
Yeah, Councilor Butters?
Won't that add to confusion? Isn't it just like no parking, tow-away zone, done, simple? Because if you have the other sign that says, you know, you're gonna have to sign it, right? That says a seasonal thing. Is that gonna confuse people, or is it just simpler to just go and just cut this off at the knees and stop it?
Yes.
Isn't that just simpler and cleaner?
That's your decision this evening.
Well, that's my point. I think it should be simple. Done.
Thank you for your comments, Councilor. Or Mrs. Hanson. Now, on the suggestion to Michener Road, we have to move amendment there as well, or include that in your amended motion. Are we clear? Councilor Rodner?
Through you to staff, and I've driven that road lots. That's, there's not too many houses from where it ends now to Michener Road, right? There's that big field and then a couple of houses, so that it really wouldn't be any burden on anybody that's on there if we go right to Michener. Then if somebody wants to hike all the way from Michener to the beach, well, God bless them. They'll, you know, they deserve to be there, but, right? Think so? Yeah. Yeah. So I concur with Councillor Butters that it goes to Michener Road also.
Madam Clerk, could you please read that amended motion one more
It's
time?
about there.
That's kind of where the wine.
That's the campground. Right, so it is up in there. Yeah.
There's a little bit confusing, so the clerk has requested just a few more seconds to...
Oh, Mr.
First of all, Councillor Kenny is ahead of you, Councillor Wildner. Councillor Kenny, we're still having a friendly discussion here.
We are having a friendly discussion. I just don't want the porta potty forgot, because they want that gone too. So before we leave the parking, let's remember we're getting rid of the porta potty.
Yes.
Councillor Bodnar.
I just wondered where I'm going to work in my 60 kilometers versus 40 kilometer request in all this revision and everything. I'd at least like a shot at it, so.
Eliminate it. Just say,
It's in there. Council will have to tell somebody to eliminate it. So I would like to bring that forward as a friendly amendment. While the clerk is scratching her head trying to figure out how to get all this in there.
Another amendment separate on its own. And the porta potty, so we'll have.
I think what we'll do is we'll have a separate amendment on the porta potty, a separate amendment on the speed limit. Okay. We're looking for some direction on the phraseology of this motion. Mr. Bonder? That's it. We're dealing with the first one first. Let's
Okay.
get that clear.
On the road?
Yes.
On the parking?
Right.
Sure. So basically from Mitchener Road, just continue the yellow line up to Mitchener Road, no parking on both sides of the road? Is that simple?
Same except you have to deal with the angled parking.
No, the angled parking stays on its own.
Okay.
We won't touch that at all, yellow and, or the green and blue lines.
Okay, you're good? Yeah. The clerk is looking for some direction on where we start the no parking zone. Yes.
If I may, just to explain, I've been working with the chart that is in the recommendation of your report. So I've amended that, but to put it into the language that's going to be suitable for council, no one's really articulated it in a way that I've been able to record it in that way because I've just been making changes to the chart. So that's why I'm looking for a little bit more phraseology from council in terms of what the actual wording of this motion is.
So do you need it said that we want a no parking tollway zone that is from Mitchener Road to the north down to where the angle parking starts, which is Farlane 24. Does that help?
No parking on Mitchener Road.
Both sides of the road.
From Mitchener Road south
No, at
to
the
fire lane number
24.
24.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Butters, would you write the motion down for me, please, and then I will be able to
Certainly.
read it to council.
Mr.
Staff has a recommendation. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if you reference the map, you can see that 880 meters south of Mitchener Road is where the first red line starts, where the no parking is, in the double area, just north of Fire Lane 21. So the prohibited tollway zone all the way to Mitchener Road would be from Mitchener Road, 880 meters south of Mitchener Road will get you to that portion there. I'd have to do a measurement to give you the next section.
The remainder's already passed.
Yeah, but this is not
South of
Mitchener Road. So it would be 880 meters south of Mitchener Road to get you to that first red line.
Okay, does council understand? And are content?
Where's the first red line? I don't see a whole lot. I don't know if you're going from the north or the south.
It says 880 meters south of Mitchener Road, right beside the red line.
The next one, 965. I don't know who's using the mouse.
I have it written down on my other map, but this one here would be
Is council clear?
960.
Is the next one 965, Sherry?
I believe so, yes. Yes,
Say it again.
yes. That's 965 would be the next one. If you reference on page 91, when we're talking about Pleasant Beach Road, it's a point approximately 880 meters south of Mitchener Road to a point of 960 meters south of Mitchener Road. That gets you that point. So it would be from Mitchener Road to a point approximately 965 meters south of Mitchener Road, and that would give you your distance to fire lane 24.
From the chart, is this being amended?
So I think. Sure. Through your worship to council, the problem we're having is we're working off of a chart here that's going to be appended to a bylaw, which is on the screen right now. But council's giving direction based on the map. So I think if you look at, if I'm looking at the right one, my eyes aren't very good. The second cell from the top, third column, a point approximately 612 south of Michener Road to 880 south of Michener Road can be stricken completely. The next line down can be from Pleasant Beach Road, west side, third cell, a point, or from Michener Road to a point 965 meters south of the center line of Michener Road, which would represent the last, in the chart, in the picture, the last red line before the angle parking starts. So I think the amendment needs to be that row, I guess that's the third row of the chart, be stricken, and the fourth row of the chart be amended to say from the center line of Michener Road to the center line of, to the point 965 meters south of the center line of Michener Road, and that will accomplish in verbal form what the council's trying to accomplish in picture form. Sherry, do you agree with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The fire lanes are not exactly equal on both sides. So one side is 965 and the other one's 990, but we'll work it out.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? No more questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
No.
Now, we appreciate the applause. It's not really in our rules of procedure to allow that to go on, so I'd ask, please refrain.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Wetters.
Can we go on to the next one to move to remove the porta potty?
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Councilor Kenny? Call for the vote. Unless there's discussion. Being no discussion, I'll call for the vote.
Mrs. Hanson had her hand up.
Mrs. Hanson, your comment.
Previously, council directed to put the porta potty in at the request of the restaurant owner that previously owned the restaurant because people were constantly using the washroom at the restaurant.
Yep.
And that was one of the reasons that the porta potty got installed in the first place. And in the report, it suggests having the porta potty cleaned twice weekly instead of once to try and resolve the problem because we're getting complaints from the survey with regards to people urinating and defecating on private property, just so that you're aware that that information is also in the report.
You've heard the counsel of our wise staff.
Yes, I have.
Did that young lady, did she not make a comment on the porta potty as well?
Yes, she did.
She's the present owner
Yes,
of
the restaurant.
The new owner.
But was she in favor of it being
Yes, she was.
removed?
Yes, she was.
Mr. Hanson, I appreciate your comments, but if the actual person who made the request has now withdrawn that request.
What's a new owner?
What's the new owner? Okay.
She's right. She's absolutely right when she says it just needs to change.
Okay. Well, we've heard from the current owner who would like it removed. The motion is to remove it. We have cautionary comments by staff. You'll have to take that into your deliberation as you vote nay or yea. All those in favor of the motion, of the amendment to the motion? Opposed? Would appear to be carried unanimously. Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Hanson. All right, I think we're ready to vote on the motion as amended. Oh, we hadn't done the speed limit yet? Councilor Wagner.
I think I'd like to make another amendment to that we maintain the 60 kilometers right down to the beach, that we maintain that 60 kilometer an hour zone and not bring it to 40.
So you're amending the main motion to return to what the speed limit. Councillor Butters, did you not indicate that you preferred that to be 40?
I didn't mind that it was being reduced, but I'm not opposed to supporting.
Okay. So we'll, I appreciate what your main motion said. It's being further amended. Councillor Wagner, all those in favor of 60 miles per hour speed limit? 60 kilometers? All those in favor? Carried unanimously as well. Now, if we can move one final time on the motion as amended 3 times. Is there discussion? There be none, call for all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Now, if we can return to the agenda, I believe we've covered all the areas of concern that the Mount Pleasant Beach property owners were concerned about. Thank you for your patience. Next is my mayor's report. That will be perhaps brief, view of the time. I just want to comment on Canal Days. I wish to express my sincere appreciation to our staff and to our volunteers for executing another wonderful Canal Days last week. Mr. Hakem, thanks for the hard planning over the year to make this come off. There was tremendous effort for a tremendous festival. The city saw record crowds at all events, and thank you also to the residents of our community for welcoming our visitors with open arms. I received comments from many people that everyone was just so friendly, and that it was a great festival. I continue to receive very positive comments on the entire event. To bring it to Council's notice, annual oral rabies vaccine, we have been notified by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry that they will be getting their annual oral rabies vaccine summer and fall bait distribution shortly. Since December 2015, there have been over 150 cases of raccoon strain rabies in Niagara, Hamilton, Haldimand, and Norfolk areas. The bait packages are khaki green, and contain vegetable-based fats, which was the main attraction, the flavor. There is a phone number on the package and a do not eat warning. If found, the bait should be touched but left for raccoons, skunks, and foxes to consume. Councillor Barrick is not here, so we don't have a regional council report tonight. The regional council is not meeting during the month of August. Are there any council's items or issues that they wish to bring forward at this time? Councillor Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Dan, I guess now. Terry's gone. Is there a possibility that we change the bylaw on property standards and make it a little different for habitual offenders? Our 21-day turnaround regularly for keeping up your yard and your grass and all that other stuff seems to work after you do it once or twice, but we do have, especially in my ward, a few habituals that it's ongoing. I've had 2 complaints this week since they got their impact statements on their new assessment that their neighbors doesn't seem to have any effect on their property value until you look at it. I was wondering if there is a possibility that we do amend that bylaw somehow and have a separate component for people who are habitual. Could you do that, Dan?
Mr. Equilin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Main, the Clean Yards bylaw, once we made the changes to the long grass, the turnaround time was a lot more quicker. And if there's no compliance in that quick turnaround time, we do the jobs ourselves. Once we made that amendment, I've seen positive results. But we can look at potentially for habitual offenders. What we do normally is we send a letter out to those property owners at the beginning of the year to say, bylaws come into effect, you got to do the work, we're not, there's zero tolerance. Could look into it to see if there's anything we can do, if there's any language in there right now that would deal with those individuals, something we can look into. Report back to council.
Thank you, Dan, for that. Appreciate it.
Anything further from any other councillors? Oh, Mr. Rain, go ahead.
This was just brought to my attention today. The potted trees that the city put up. It seems that when a person parks, they can't get out of the passenger door because that bucket is right on the curb. And I know that the spots that they put the buckets is where the old trees used to be, and there would have to be some remedial work if they moved them. But the comment from one of the ratepayers downtown asked if those trees could be moved on the division line between the parking spaces rather than right at the door, because people can't get in and out.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Main, that's exactly our intent. Just before Canal Days, when we had these ready to go, we wanted to get some of those flowering crabs that were a real concern downtown and get those out. So as a quick step measure prior to Canal Days, taking the crabs out, we put the potted trees in their place. Some of them got dented either by car bumpers or other ways. The intent really is to get them on the dividing line between stalls so there won't be a problem. And the ones that are damaged, we have to find a resolve to that because they're just getting damaged too easily. So we're working on that and looking at some remedial ways to fix those planter pots.
Okay, thank you very much, Ron. It wasn't that you were aware of it or not, but thanks.
Is anything further, Mr. Main?
Not at the present time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other councillors? There being none, are there any staff reports to previous councillors' inquiries? There being none, I'd like to return to consideration of items requiring separate discussion.
12 and 13, I think. 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Did all the others?
Just checking. 12 and 13. 12.
You have a question in the gallery,
Mr. Mayor? Ordinarily, we don't address questions from the gallery. They have to be a delegation. Could you just briefly express your concern?
Yes, I will. My name is Joseph Palumbo. I live at 5511 Fire Lane 27. I thought tonight we were going to discuss the angle parking, and Mr. Bodner brought it up a couple of times. I didn't hear any discussion about it, and it's not clear to me whether the angle parking has been further restricted on the east side of Pleasant Beach Road. And there's a landowner there that cannot access his property, and if it's not being further restricted from the lake shore, he can't get into his home. And I feel that we've missed the boat on this. I was expecting you guys to talk about, or not that I could discuss it with you since I didn't petition you to do that, but I couldn't understand this chart, as I believe many of you couldn't understand it for the yellow section where the red lines were, and we never really got to the angled parking. And I'm just disappointed.
Mr. Bodner?
We're talking about the last house on the left-hand side as you go down towards the lake, right?
That's correct.
The gentleman that has to go right up. It doesn't even, people don't even notice that it's there. Mr. Mayor, I wonder if we could ask staff to resolve that problem. That's been brought up a number of times. I thought we had it under control, but if it isn't, there's got to be a fix. There's got to be something there that can alleviate. Those people have to get to their place. So if staff could tell us how that's going to happen. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bonner. I will double check, but my recollection is that we have no parking in front of that going southerly from where the current totes are that don't allow parking in front of that gentleman's driveway. We were aware of him, and we won't allow parking there, and I don't believe we need to follow up on the matter.
The sign is posted on a telephone pole that the porta potty is chained to. No one observes the sign, and they go beyond the sign and the porta potty, and it just blocks it on that side. Maybe we only need another 20 feet or 30 feet or something.
So, Mr. Bodner?
Thank you. I just wonder whether staff could look at something you guys have come up with something, but is there a way to put a, for lack of a better thing, like a guardrail there so people can't park there? I don't know what we can do, but it has to be a lot clearer than what it is, and we just can't allow people just to park there because they either don't understand the sign or whatever. There's got to be some either physical barrier or something that prevents people from angle parking in that area.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Palumbo, can we just have your full name and address?
Oh, yes, Joseph Palumbo, P-A-L-U-M-E-O.
Yeah.
I live at 5511 Fire Lane 27. I'm next to the property owner that has the problem coming in his gate at the southernmost end of Pleasant Beach Road.
On the east side.
On the east side.
Yeah.
And many, many times it's blocked by other cars, and they're very defiant. And now, of course, with the less parking allowed on the main road, perhaps it could be even more of an issue.
Thank you for your intervention.
Thank you very
Mr. Aquilina, were you going to comment?
Mr. Mayor, we can take a look at it, but as I mentioned, it's signed properly to not park there. An individual got a ticket for parking there and tried to fight that ticket. I dismissed his claim, but it's a matter of enforcement and what we said to the individuals that were here at the last public meeting. If someone is blocking someone's driveway, let us know, and we will tow that vehicle. When we're out on patrol, we look for that. If we see a vehicle blocking a driveway, we'll proactively tow. But we'll take a look at if there's anything else we could do there. But as I mentioned, when we have areas with no parking, we properly sign it under the Highway Traffic Act.
And can we advise Mr. Palumbo where to complain to when he sees a vehicle parked illegally?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's right to bylaw enforcement at City Hall, 835-2900, and ask for bylaw enforcement, and it will get to the officers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 12. That's Mr. Danch. Hold that item.
Fire and Emergency Services Report number 2016-130, subject authority under burning bylaw number 6280/106/15.
Is there a seconder? Councilor Kenny? Discussion?
Please. I kind of want to go to bat for this farmer guy there, and I sent everybody a little email there, but maybe a few of you didn't get to look at it, but I mean, Chief, the fire services is something that's provided to the people in the community, is it not?
You're asking the chief through the chair, right?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Go ahead, Chief.
Through your worship to Councilor Dance, that's correct.
Okay, so once again, through the mayor, and that's technically, that is your job to protect the community and everything that goes along with it. I'd like to know, like, you said 3 trucks went to the fire. So what, we got a tanker, a pumper, what else?
Your worship, through you to Councilor Dance, in reality, 5 trucks went to that call. We billed them for 3 trucks, both are of our engines and 1 tanker.
Seems like a lot for a grass fire. I just find that, farming is an important thing to the community, and it's how we eat. And this guy is a commercial farmer, and that's what he does, is he puts food on our tables. I guess he didn't make the phone call, and he did something wrong in that way. But if he wasn't growing that stuff, no one would be having anything on their plate. And I just feel it's not right to charge this farmer for something that he's calling an act of farming, which has been going on for years. That individual owns hundreds of acres in this community, and he's been doing it his whole life. And I don't think it's fair. And I might get shot down, but I think $4,663 for a grass fire that he was maintaining. Off topic, they had a fire out in Caledonia, and the fire department there lost 2 trucks because they went into a field with some wheat burning. $500,000 was the loss. That whole loss is going to come back to those people in the community and the taxpayers around them. I don't think this fellow should be charged $4,663. I don't think he should be charged anything, but that's my opinion, and I'll leave it at that.
Chief, do you have a comment?
Your worship, to Councilor Dance, the bylaw is written in such a way that I don't have any flexibility and maneuverability with regards to determining what the bill should be. The individual involved admitted here in this delegation that he realized that he should have called but didn't, and that's unfortunate. He had done so in the past without a problem from myself, and we had not had any other responses to his property. With regards to the comment on the fire that took place in Haldeman, you're not wrong in the sense it was a wheat field fire. As I understand it, the loss is fully covered by insurance, and I understand the cost could be as high as $1 million, but for the replacement of those 2 trucks. I just don't know what else to tell you. I'm kind of, my hands are tied with regards to a fee schedule, with regards to a bylaw. That's the position council's taken. It's my responsibility to enforce those rules, and I try to do that as best I can.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councilor Wagner.
Sure. And I guess it's important to remember that we set those rules. The chief's just following through on what we told him to do. Rightly or wrongly, that's what we did. I guess I've got a concern with this too, and I understand that the comment was made by Mr. Veenstra that
this turned down.
He could put the grass fire out by simply driving over it with his big tractor and plow. And if I'd like to confirm, was that made to our fire department, and was that a realistic option? Because if it was, I just wonder why we didn't take him up on it. I realize that that's not the normal way you put out a fire, but you know, Chief, was it a viable option?
Through your worship, to Councillor Bodner, unfortunately, as I said at the last meeting, I wasn't there, but I did make sure that, I believe Mike is still here. Yes, Mike is still here. He was the officer in charge, so if I could, I'd ask him to come forward and answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bogner, the grass fire was not the only issue there. There were 4 large piles burning, probably the size of this council seating area. And the wind was extremely high. When the first truck booked on the air, he could see it when he turned onto Main Street West, or Main Street East, I'm sorry. So we got a couple of calls with regards to the grass fire. And when the first truck pulled in, I wasn't on location, but I could hear him on the radio, advising that the grass fire was racing across the field towards a residence. Now, Mr. Veenstra was out there with his tractor trying to put it out, and I think he realized once we were there that he hadn't called and that he was trying to solve the problem himself. But we had to put a truck between his house and the field to stop the grass fire. So him saying he had control of it, I will disagree with. It was moving very quickly. The problem was the 3 or 4 large piles. We had embers coming off those piles. We worked out there for 3.5 hours to get the piles down small enough that they were no longer a hazard. We never did get them out before we left because we would have been there 2 days. That was, excuse me, our concern. And as I said, we had other calls on it from the public that was upset. So we addressed it as the same as somebody burning without approval and a complaint. We had to eliminate the hazard before we left, and that's what we did.
Any other comments? There being none, to call for the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion fails. At this time, I think the report's approved. Well, the motion did pass, and if we okay, we're fine. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Number 13, Mr. Maine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fire and Emergency Services Report number 2016-135, subject roof repairs for the fire station.
Seconder, Councilor Butters. Any discussion?
Yes, as soon as I find what I'm looking at. Yeah, I went out and I checked out this building, and it definitely needs roof repairs. It needs repairs to the masonry. I have no issue with that. What my issue is waiving our policy for tenders. Looking through all this stuff that we did tonight, there was a tender system work for the playground equipment, for the Vale Center. I have a problem spending $60,000 without it going through the proper way. And even if this company came back as the lowest bid, in all fairness, it should have been put out to tender. Through my insomnia, I Googled this company's on Google, and they are very reputable. It's not an issue with the workmanship they do. But there was a part on the website where the owner of this company was complaining that he was not allowed to bid on Niagara College, on a Niagara College structure. And he was very bitter about not being allowed to do the tender. So I think what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I think if we're spending $60,000, I'd like to see a few more quotes. I know that in this recommendation it says that if we have some rain, we're in for some real trouble, and I don't know whether the squirrel is still there or whether he's got away, but I have no trouble with having the work done. It needs to be done. It has to be done. My biggest concern is waiving our regular policy of tenders. Thank you.
Any comments, Chief?
Your Worship, to Councillor Maine, we did have this discussion. There were some delays from the time the budget was passed till the time we got to get the price. Because of the type of work that was required to do to complete it, it required that parts of the building be modified to be able to access it, to get a better look at it. We didn't count on getting the amount of rain we got this one particular day for the few raindrops we did or have had over the past summer, over this past couple of months. But nonetheless, it did do some damage to the inside of the building. So I asked if we could go ahead and get this done sooner than later, based on the fact that it's probably going to take us, and again, Ron probably be better at this than I, but I'm going to suggest probably somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks before we get to a position where we could even start the project. We had, once it was passed, it went to Chris with regards to taking on the project. He put this together with others that were being done in the city, as I understand it. I believe this contractor is also involved in those at some point in time. And the decision was made by myself in consultation with Chris, the CAO, and Peter, to bring forward a report such as what you have in front of you this evening, with the request to move ahead with this sooner than later. The unfortunate part is that the number is already out there in the public's eye. So if I'm another roof contractor, I know what I'm bidding. I think that puts this person at a disadvantage, but that's a decision of council.
Any other discussion for Mr. Maine?
Yeah, I still have some discussion over this. I know that it's been compromised with this being in the public. My issue is, when King Contracting came to do their estimate, what would have been wrong with 2 or 3 others coming at the same time? When you tender something, you say, okay, we're running out of time and we can't really do it. But if King could come out and quote, we could have had 2 or 3 other people quote at exactly the same time. I think the issue to me is limiting. It doesn't look right to me. where we pick an exclusive contractor to do a job, and having said that, to me, it's just, we could do that with every building in town. The bricks are falling off the side of the end of Roselawn. I could say, well, let's call up the bricklayer and have him come, but we don't need any contracts. We got to get it done right away. I just don't have a good feeling about doing it this way, and how it happened that way, it's irregardless. It's happened. The cat's out of the bag as far as a quote, but I still would like to see 3 quotes come in. I'm sorry, I don't like doing it the way it was done.
Thank you, Mr. May. Mrs. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor Main. And since the discussion was with our CAO, I would ask a comment from our CAO is how that happened, because I'm not very happy with that not getting tendered out either. So, Mr. CAO, he said, the chief said the discussion was with you and Mr. Lee, and I want to know why that discussion was done without a tender going out. Thank you.
Mr. Louis?
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Kenny, I think the report speaks for itself. The discussion really surrounded around the urgency of the repair, and obviously that is a matter of opinion, and council does, or I guess Councillor Main stated that he doesn't agree with the, I guess, the sense of urgency, and I understand he not so much the sense of urgency as the opportunity for bids. And I understand the assertion, I guess, that the case could be made for any repair. We could, not to paraphrase Councillor Main, we could say that any job is an emergency just to get around the rules of the procurement policy. But in this case, there was water damage that was coming into the building. We do store expensive gear for the firefighters and firefighting equipment in the storage room. I guess there are alternatives. That's a fact. We could store that stuff elsewhere until the repair is made. But really, the case was made at the staff level for the emergency provisions of the procedural bylaw, and that is something that is allowed to council, for council to do. There's a number of exclusions to the purchasing bylaw. When there's only one vendor available, or extending a job that's already started with the existing contractor, or the one that's being cited here, which is an emergency repair to one of our facilities. But once again, as with the other matters before council today, it's at the pleasure of council which way we proceed with this matter.
Any further comments? Mr. May?
Just a quick rebuttal through Mr. Mayor to Scott. If one company can come and bid on an emergency, 3 can come and bid on an emergency. And I'm not downplaying the expertise of King Contracting, but I know there's several other ones out there. And if you put the tender out, if only one guy shows up, perfect. I memean, that's the guy that was interested in the job, that's the guy that gets the job. But to supersede the tendering part of it, or to waive it, I can't support it. Whether we have to put buckets to catch the water until this process goes through, I just can't support this. It just doesn't leave a good feeling.
Thank you, Mr. May. Any further discussion? Alderman Danch.
I guess I want to ask the question is, why we waited so long if we knew we had this issue with the roof? I mean, you're saying budget things. Well, that budget went through earlier this year, and you guys got squirrels running around up there. I mean, if you had a leaky roof in your own home, you'd get on it relatively quick, not wait 7 months.
Again, it's a question through the chair to the chief.
Your worship, to Councillor Dench, we'd made 2 previous attempts to repair the roof with another contractor unsuccessfully. After the budget for this year was passed, a number of roof issues were put together and put under Chris Lee's expertise, shall I say, to come up with answers for some of the roof projects that we had. And you can see the date on the final quote we got. It did take some time because of the amount of work required to try to investigate exactly what was wrong with it. We had to get building plans out. We had to meet with the building inspector. We had to tear the building apart, basically, to find out exactly what was wrong with it. And quite frankly, there is a building defect in the building in so much as it's not sealed properly. Where it needs to be sealed properly, so there's significant modifications that had to be made or will have to be made. And also, we also still have to seal where the metal flashing meets the brick or the block. That's all part and parcel of the repair that's being projected. There had been 2 attempts to seal the flashing at the point at which it meets the blocks on the building, and as I said just a second ago, that was not successful, and so it was put together, and the time quickly passed. It took that long to get a contractor in to tear it apart, to take a good look at what exactly needed to be done.
Any other questions? Just a question, Chief. If we have to go to retender, how long will that take approximately?
Again, Your Worship, Ron's probably more of an expert, but if I could, just from the little that I know about the project, under normal circumstances, we would have to prepare some type of a document to go out to the contractors to find out and give them some idea of what's required to be done. Or we would have to provide an RFP and ask for a request for proposal with regards to what they see should be done to repair the problem. This particular contractor took it upon himself to take the building somewhat apart, and some of it can't be put back together. It has to be replaced. So I would suggest, and probably Ron can verify it, at least 4 weeks, possibly a little bit longer, depending on which way we go, whether we go to a full tender or whether we go to an RFP.
Mr. Hanson, roughly a time limit within reason?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It'd take at least a couple months, given the workload we have now and the tender documents we still have coming out. The problem with this is it wasn't, just to be clear, it's not just a tender. We had to have someone determine what the actual issues were and a solution for the repair. That's what's provided in this quote here. We could have other contractors come in, have the same type of look, as the chief said. It's more of an RFP at that point, so that takes some time. They'd have to come in and take a look, offer their solution and their cost. Sometimes it's difficult to compare apples to apples in terms of what they might see as a repair. This shouldn't be a temporary repair. It needs to be a permanent repair. There have been previous attempts at trying to solve this problem and it hasn't been resolved. So this contractor went in and come up with a resolve, a way to fix it, and provided a quote for that. And that's somewhat different than a tender. And given the expediency of it and in talking to the chief to get this done, this was the solution for it. So I would think it would take us probably a couple months to get a tender document out, or at least have other contractors come in, take a look at it, prepare proposals, submit prices, and then make a decision with another report back to council.
And is there anything that we learned from what has happened in future that we would avoid?
Mr. Mayor, this isn't unusual. I mean, sometimes we had a problem with, I use an example of the valet roof. We had to bring a separate consultant in to prepare a solution that we followed to have the actual general contractor fix it, because there were some preliminary attempts to fix the roof and it continued to leak. So this is a similar situation where you bring somebody in that can add some expertise to it, provide a better solution for the problem, and then provide a quote on it. What we could do is provide tender documents based strictly on what King Construction has proposed. Given that the price is out there now, that puts him perhaps at somewhat of a disadvantage. He'd have to rethink his prices and tender on that basis. So it's not an error in any sense. This was a way to get a good fix to it and get a good proposal to get the roof fixed permanently. And that's the way to do it.
Thank you. Any other questions arising out of my comments? Being done, call for question. Up, Mr. Bonder.
Yeah, I guess I think I'll vote for this just because I get the whole tender thing, and that shouldn't happen. But I also get that this isn't the normal, tender, come and fix the roof when you didn't really know what was wrong with it. So I would put some faith in staff that they've got some handle on this and that they are sure that this will work. But I also would like to see that we tighten up the process when we go to tender. I know we have that all in there, but I'm hoping that staff gets it, that we're not too happy that this wasn't tendered out. And the circumstances, I will vote for this with reservation a little bit. Thanks.
Councilor Butters?
Through you to Mr. Louie, how many times since you've taken over here as the city manager have you needed to use the emergency provision? Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure that's relevant to the recommendation at hand, but I'll be happy to hear Mr. Louie's comment, just the thing.
Sure. Through your worship, I stand to be corrected, or to Councilor Butters, I stand to be corrected and pointed out if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first time. This is not something that staff does lightly or frequently.
Madam Butters?
And the reason I asked that question was because I was pretty sure that this doesn't happen, because I can't remember a time either. So I'm with Councilor Bodnar. I am going to support this recommendation. And I see this as something that is not a usual course.
Thank you. Any further questions? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. That concludes our items for discussion. Are there any notices of motion from any councilman or woman? Councilor? There being none, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment. All those moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Danch. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned, and we'll call the next meeting to order. The meeting is a regular meeting of the City of Port Colborne Council, 23-16, following the Committee of the Whole on August 8th, Monday. Are there any addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is one addendum item this evening. That's the withdrawal of the bylaw associated with parking and traffic on Pleasant Beach Road as a result of amendments during the Committee of the Whole meeting, and that bylaw will be presented at the next regular meeting of Council.
Thank you. I entertain a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Kenny. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest tonight? There being none indicated, and the minutes will so note. Call for the adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting of Council 22-16 held on July 25th, 2016. Motion, Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Kenny. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Determination of items requiring a separate discussion. There being none, this time I call for a motion to approve those items not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor? Councilor Danch? Councilor Kenny, seconded. All those in favor? Carried. There are no proclamations this evening. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. The Grant Policy Committee of February 11th, 1916. Motion to accept those minutes. Councilor Butters, seconded by Councilor Maine. Madam Clerk, will we consider the bylaws?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 6387, 6716, being a bylaw to authorize certain new capital works for the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne, to authorize the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for financing such capital works, to authorize temporary boring in connection with such works, and to authorize long-term borings for such works through the issue of debentures by the Regional Municipality of Niagara. Bylaw 63886816, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Play Power LT Canada Inc. regarding tender 2016-8, supply and install of playground equipment. Bylaw 63896916, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Henderson Recreation regarding tender 2016-6, supply and install of outdoor fitness equipment. Bylaw 63907016, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with MMM Group Limited regarding tender 2016-5, qualification of consulting services for the 2016 at-grade railway crossing inspection program. Bylaw 63917116, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an encroachment agreement with Young Bunslauer Canada regarding 1555 Elm Street. Bylaw 63927216, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with King Contractors of Niagara Limited regarding roof repairs to the fire station. And finally, bylaw 63937316, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of August 6, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I have a motion to accept those bylaws en masse? Moved by Councillor Bodnar, seconded by Councillor Dench. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I now entertain a motion to go into closed session. That Council do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. A, Chief Administrative Officer, Special Projects and Corporate Strategic Initiatives, report number 2016-128 regarding the unopened road allowances of Empire and Michael roads pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(c), a proposal or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. B, finding development report number 2016-131 regarding an unsolicited offer for the city to acquire private property pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Is a motion to accept that motion? Moved by Councillor Butter, seconded by Councillor Main. All those in favor? Carried. We'll adjourn now to the ante room for further discussion.